Now, what we're going to get into is this past year, a year in review. We're going to talk about the growth of the league that we experienced. We're also going to talk about the rule changes that were implemented this past year. We'll also talk about the new rules that are being implemented for the 17-18 season, but we'll also be reviewing the rules we put into place for 16-17 season. And then we'll get into the realignment that we pushed through for 16-17 as well. As you can see, here's a nice chart showing our growth from the first year all the way up to 2017, and it's a nice pattern. It's growing every single year. This past year we added about 21 teams net. We, I think, added 33 teams, obviously lost a few, but netted about 21 teams. So we're really excited about that. We're going to continue that growth pattern for 2018. Our goal is to be around that 330 mark. So we're really excited, and you should be too, about just the growth the NCBA has gone through since its inception. Here's a little graph showing our state representation, which is another thing that's really exciting. You see we're in 44 states. The year prior, we were in 43. This past year, we added the University of Rhode Island, making it our 44th state that we're in. Rhode Island had such a successful year that they actually started a Division III team in our league. Next year, during this meeting, we'll be showing at least 45, because we will be going into the University of New Hampshire, which is another state, which means that we only have 5 states that we're not in, 2 of which are Alaska and Hawaii. So that's really exciting. I really feel in the next few years, maybe in a year or two, that we'll have state representation in the lower 48. We also have Canada. We have the University of Windsor, who's a very successful program the past 2 years in Division II, but they, being so successful, they actually moved up to Division I. So exciting things there as well. And this is just giving you guys an idea of where we sit as far as other college baseball leagues. You see we're sitting right kind of in the middle between NJCAA D1 and NJCAA D2. Again, we expect to be around that 330 mark for 2017-18. So that'll give you kind of idea of where we sit next to other college baseball leagues. Now I want to get into, again, these are some of the rules that we put into place this past year. These are not the new rules that we had at the Rules Committee meeting this past month that we're putting into the rule book this year. These are rules that you already played with. So I don't want to go through every single one of these, but I do want to touch on a few of these on each slide, some of the major ones. One of which, number 4, we reduced the maximum roster size from 33 to 30. And the reason the Rules Committee did that, I believe, is the idea behind it was to try and level the playing field slightly. There are some universities that might not have the opportunity to get 33 guys on the roster. So we wanted to just close that gap just a little bit to try and even the playing field as best as possible. So the reason we did that was to make that a little more fair for all teams involved. With that being said, we did provide a little more flexibility. In point number 5, we allowed 5 players to be removed from the roster if they met documented reasons. In previous years, I believe that number was 3. We moved that up to 5 just to give them more flexibility, since we did make the roster size 3 individuals smaller. I did want to talk about number 8, adding a rule to 4.02.2.2, stating that a single makeup game can be played as a 7-inning game if approved by the regional director. In the NCBA D1, all single games need to be 9-inning, but we added an exception to that rule, basically saying the reason behind it is a lot of teams get, makeup games way back towards the end of the season where they need to get games in, and for a certain weekend they may have 2 opponents they need to play, maybe a series against one team and then just a single makeup game against another team. We wanted to make that single game against that Team B, so to speak, possible to be played as a 7-inning game. Rule number 9, adding the clarification that a triple header can be played as 7-inning games. We've got that question a lot. It's always been that if you played a triple header, it could be played as 7 innings, but we just wanted to get that into the rule book so that it was clear that teams could see. Point number 12 in this, adding a clarification example to Rule 5.02.2 regarding mound visits. Again, this isn't really a rule, it's just a clarification, and the meaning behind it is a lot of teams, their designated manager might be their catcher, and every time that catcher would go out to talk with the pitcher, it was going to be counted as a mound visit. And not a lot of teams understood that, so we wanted to put that into the rule book so that teams understood, it's probably not best to put your catcher as the designated manager if he's the, officer or president of the team. It's probably best to put somebody else as that designated manager, just so that every time the catcher goes out to talk to the pitcher, it's not charged for a mound visit. I want to talk about point number 13, which is adding failure to report subs before the next pitch will result in an auto ejection of the coach. That is basically, you have to let the head umpire and chief know before a sub goes in that that you're putting in a sub. If you fail to do that and a pitch is thrown, the head coach is automatically ejected. Roster violations. Protests must be made before first pitch or as soon as a sub not listed on the lineup card enters the game. This was probably the biggest hot topic at the Rules Committee meeting. This was basically, we had a lot of teams, were playing ineligible players not on the roster, but we also had teams waiting till the end of the game after they may have lost to protest that game. What we wanted to just clean up was, at ground rules, you need to protest the game if they get if you get your opponent's lineup card and it doesn't have a player on the roster. At that point is when you have to protest, not later in the game. So we cleaned that up as well. And we also added a section to that to kind of penalize the team that did play the ineligible player. If it was protested correctly or incorrectly, that team was going to lose $100 of their performance bond. Another big rule, point number 18. If umpires are 30 minutes or more late to a scheduled game time, it becomes an automatic forfeit unless teams mutually agree to play later than the scheduled start. Sometimes it's out of the umpire's control that they can't get there on time. If they are 30 minutes or more late, that qualifies for an automatic forfeit. But we're here to play baseball. Teams are here to play baseball. And if teams both agree, hey, it's only going to be about a 15-minute delay that we can pick that game up, it won't cause an automatic forfeit. We wanted to update the rules to the game. The game headwear is our new headwear sponsor. We wanted to make sure that teams know that you have to wear the game headwear in games, especially this year. We grandfathered Richardson cap in last year, but this year it's exclusively the game headwear. So you need to wear the game headwear for all your games or you'll be out of uniform. So we wanted to make sure we got the game into the rule book as well. Adding all or part of their, in quotations, to Rule 4.06.3, that's in regards to the mercy rule. If the home team is up and they only need up by 10 runs and they only need part of their inning to get to 10 runs, they don't need to complete that inning. The game can be stopped as soon as they reach that 10-run threshold. Stats for the entire team must be uploaded for the nominations of Player and Pitcher of the Week to be considered. This is just an encouragement to get teams to put their stats up. And we reward those teams that do put their stats up with Player and Pitcher of the Week honors. So again, that's something we put into place, that if you want your nominations for Player or Pitcher of the Week to even be considered, you have to have your stats up. We also allowed the Mid-America North and the Mid-Atlantic West to play fall games. Those are areas of the country. The Mid-America North is up in Minnesota and Iowa, and the Mid-Atlantic West is in Ohio and down into Kentucky. It was really tough getting all the spring getting all the games in just in the spring. So we allowed those conferences to play fall ball, which they are currently doing now, which is great, and it's freeing up the spring for a lot of these teams. And then for the 2017-18 season, adding a performance bond for the Division II teams. That is in place, and teams are currently paying those, and that is mainly due to the fact that we now have Division III, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we did move some of the underperforming Division II teams down to Division III, which made Division II a very tough, legitimate, competitive league, and we expect things from those teams in Division II, and the performance bond was just added in there so that teams don't forfeit. It's a deterrent from teams forfeiting that is in place, and we're really excited about that, and will hopefully deter teams from forfeiting games at the D2 level. Want to talk about realignment. Again, just want to make sure if you're just joining us, this is realignment that we put into place in the 2016-2017 season. This is Division I. We moved automatic call-up St. Louis to the St. Louis University to the Mid-America South Conference. They were a great fit there. We only had 5 teams in that conference before, and they were a great fit to become that 6th team. We moved the University of Montana from the NOPAC North to the NOPAC South, and moved the University of Washington from the NOPAC West to the NOPAC North, and added new team Portland State to the NOPAC West. We moved Georgia from the South Atlantic West to the South Atlantic East, and added automatic call-up University of Tennessee Chattanooga to the South Atlantic West. And then last but not least, we moved Humboldt State University out of the SOPAC North. We moved them down to Division II, and we moved Stanford from the west to the north, and Grand Canyon and automatic call-up University of San Diego to the SOPAC South. And then lastly, moved Cal State Fullerton and Cal State Long Beach from the south to the west. So that was this previous year. One of the things that we're really shooting for at the Division I level is to have 3 conferences of 6 teams. What that 3 conferences does, it does allow for an at-large bid. We had an at-large bid in all 8 regions, which is great, and the 6 teams in each conference is a nice number. 5 we feel is a little too small with only 4 conference series. 6 is 5 conference series, and it's still we feel that we're able to get it in. So with these moves, we were able to have I believe 6 of the 8 regions having 3 conferences, all of 6 teams, which is great. Now, as far as the Division II realignment went, like we touched on before, St. Louis University, San Diego, and UT Chattanooga all met that automatic promotion roll to the Division I level. We had room for them at the D1 level, so they were all called up. We had districts 3, 4, 6, and 7 all moved to 4 conferences, which in that case eliminated the at-large bid. So it stinks for the teams that finish in second place that they don't have a shot to make playoffs. But what we're really excited about is in Division III, with Division III opening up, which we will talk about later, that we were able to pull a lot of those teams out of Division II down to Division III. And we'll talk about the Division II realignment shortly, but we're really excited about it. We're able to get all of Division II back down to 3 conferences. So all 8 districts, regions, whatever you want to call it, in Division II will now have that at-large bid, which is always exciting. The second place finishers will have a shot to make the playoffs. So we had to move to 4 conferences just because of the oversaturation of the amount of teams in our league. And which was, we were required basically to open up a Division III league just because of the amount of teams we had were so many. So we're really excited about that moving forward for the 17-18 season. And yeah, just to kind of reiterate, conferences with districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all realigned given the growth on the East Coast. District 6 added 5 new teams, providing 4 conferences of 6 teams. And then District 7, we added a second conference within Texas.